Welcome. We're going to get started. If anybody wants to speak tonight, make sure you fill out a card. They're in the back under agenda participation, and give it to Kathy. You don't have to do it. We have two meetings. The first meeting is committee of the whole. You can do it in the break and give it to her if you haven't filled out a card. So, in the meantime, we're going to stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, friends, welcome. And Kathy, can you do a roll call, please?
You got it. King.
Present.
Pugh.
Present.
McDonald is absent. Galogly.
Here.
Deskin.
Here.
Bergbauer.
Here.
Bartleson. Here. Sabin. We have a quorum.
All right, I see Pastor Mitzi's in the house. Our police chaplain's going to open us up.
Let's pray. God, thank you that you know all things. Nothing surprises you, and none of your children are ever outside of your sight. Thank you for these fine men and women who sacrifice their time to serve this community as mayor and council members and employees. Please guide them in all the things under consideration at tonight's meeting, and continue to let your blessing rest on this city. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, friends, any liaison reports?
I just have a little something. Last week, there was meet the cast and the creators from the season 3 advanced screening for Somebody Somewhere. I was picking it. And I had never seen it before, so I actually went and watched some of the episodes, and it's really cute. It was a super fun night. Allison put it on, Allison Ken, and Wendy put it together, and it was really well attended and a really fun night at the Roxy Theater. So hopefully they do something like that again.
Yeah, that was definitely fun, so that's good. I don't know if any of you've seen it, but it's fun watching shots from around town show up on the screen, so. Anybody else got anything? Yeah, what do you got?
Police liaison report. Officer of the Year was announced. That is Detective Chris Neihart. Detective Neihart was nominated for this award by his supervisor over at the police department, and the award is voted on by a committee consisting of fellow officers and command staff. Detective Neihart will be honored at the Lockport Chamber of Commerce 2024 Annual Autumn Awards Banquet on Friday that honors first responders from the city and surrounding townships on Friday at Embers. We have Coffee with a Cop on Monday, November 18th from 9 a.m. till 11 a.m. at Starbucks. They'll be doing coffee and pastry pairings for the event. On Tuesday, November 19th, the Lockport Love Family Liaison Meeting will be held at 5:30 at the police department. This meeting is for anyone who wants to be the point of contact for one of the families that Lockport Love is helping this year. They meet with the family to determine their specific needs and then shop for the family with money budgeted by Lockport Love. We have so many people who want to help that the families will be assigned by a lottery at the meeting. But if you are interested in going, that's Tuesday, November 19th at 5:30 at the police department. And last item is registration is now open for our final Special Olympics fundraiser for the year. There will be a trivia night on Saturday, November 23rd at 5 p.m. at the American Legion. The cost is $30 per person, with teams being between 8 and 10 people. Cost gets you into the event and includes dinner. And if you're interested, you can reach out to Deborah Henning at her email address, dhenning@lockportpolice.info, or at her phone number, which is 815-838-2132, extension 2223. Thanks.
Right on. Thanks, Jonathan. Is that everybody? Mm-hmm. Looks like you're chomping at the bit, Joanne.
Well, I wanted to get them to give their liaison. This is just a reminder, and that our beautification recognition is in full bloom. Right now, we are concentrating on the fall and Halloween decorations, and each ward is going to be nominating a couple homes. We'd love to have you as residents to submit your lovely decorated homes for the for the seasons, for the holidays, because the holiday lights will be coming up after Thanksgiving. And then we are going to pick a winner in either January or February. We haven't decided what date yet, but it's going to be one big recognition and an award winner. So we'd love to have you participate, so don't forget to send in your beautiful pictures of decorations before the season's over, so that we'll have them on file, and we'll contact you, okay? Thank you.
Right on, thanks, Joanne. All right, we all good? All right, everyone. All right, so moving along, we're looking for a motion to have a consent agenda tonight.
So moved.
JR, and who's that? Christina? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so for approval tonight, we're looking for approval of our regular city council meeting minutes from October 16th, our committee of the whole meeting minutes from October 16th, our payroll period ending October 13th and the 27th, our bills through the 29th. There's the CD1, which is a facade and site improvement grant for the Lupine Montessori. There's the fire and sprinkler alarm assistance grant for the same address. And then there's the fire, oh, actually, no, that's for 936 South State of Maryknoll, same plaza. And then also in that plaza is the grant for the facade improvements for the new metal fascia, soffit, and column. So those three facade grants are also on here that we're looking for a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, Renee, JR, and we'll do a roll call, please.
You got it. King. Hugh.
Yes.
McDonald is absent. Galogly.
Yes.
Deskin.
Yes.
Birdbauer.
Yes.
Bartleson.
Yes?
And Saban.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, that's pretty much everything for consent, so I guess we're just looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Jonathan, JR, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So now we are in between meetings. If there's anybody that has filled out a card and still wants to speak tonight, walk it over to Kathy over there while we're in between meetings. JR, can you give me that? Please, roll call.
All right. King. Hugh.
Present.
McDonald is absent. Galogly.
Here.
Deskin.
Here.
Birdbauer.
Here.
Bartleson.
Here?
Saban.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, first on the agenda tonight is the budget presentation. So lay it on us, Lisa.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I want to start off by really thanking everybody for engaging in our 2x2 budget sessions. It was a lively conversation. Some of them went on for hours. So it was really great to have all the support from each of you engaging into this budget in a really deep dive so that we can come here and present to the public. On top of that, I'd like to thank all the department heads for all the work they put into their numbers and making sure that the budget was appropriate. And then Maggie's help for helping me with the personnel piece of the budget. So let's dive in. Here's a summary for all of the funds that we have. So we have a total revenue for the city's budget for 2025 of $57 million, expenses of $68 million. We're using $12 million of excess reserves, and it still leaves us with excess fund balance of just over $9 million throughout the whole city. We're still meeting all of our fund balance policies of 4 months of reserves. So all of our funds are meeting their fund balance policies. These are citywide figures, and I just wanted to sum up for you the 5 major areas where the city brings in the $57 million. So we have water and sewer revenue that makes up about a third of our revenue. Almost another third is state and local taxes. Real estate taxes are about 15% of our budget. We have some grants and development fees on there. So that represents about 89% of the revenue that we bring in citywide. On the expense side, you could see the 5 biggest areas we have here are capital, construction, 36%, payroll-related expenses, 20%, professional fees, which include the dispatch services with Westcom, our audit, water sampling, garbage, those types of things, building maintenance, and then our debt payments, which make up about 3% of our budget. So represented here is about 75% of the expenses that we have in the city. I do want to point out that we had 5 major strategic planning initiatives. This budget identifies 4 of them. Fiscal planning, which means that we're balancing our budget from an operating perspective. Our next strategic planning initiative was infrastructure, and you can see that that makes up the largest piece of where we're spending our money. The next one was guided growth, and that's dealt with our development and conservative budgeting of revenues and expenses. As we're moving forward and looking through if we're allowing any new development to come into the city, we budget very, very conservatively so that we're not relying on those monies for our operations. We use those funds, if there are any, in future years to fund infrastructure and reinvest back into our community. On top of that, there was another strategic planning initiative of unified community. And you'll see that come through in an increase in the events that we're putting on and we're supporting here through the city. Here's an expense comparison. This is citywide. So this year we're projecting to spend $67 million. Next year we're proposing a slight increase up to $68 million. And then you'll see it's dropping down between 26 and 27, down in the $50 million range. And there's a number of reasons for that, of which less capital projects as we move forward. We're living within the budget that we have, conservative revenue estimates and expense estimates for development. We have some one-time expenses in this year's budget, so increasing our Microsoft Office from 2013 to 2024. It's been a number of years. It's time for us to move up. We'll have a strategic planning consultant next year as we move forward into the next 3 years of our strategic plan. Star Innovation District Consulting. We're also not going to be part of the HIDA program anymore, so you'll see some revenue and expense decreases when we're no longer part of that agency. We're not budgeting for any more capital transfers for the subsequent years past this next year, and there's also going to be a reduction in debt as we're paying off some of our bonds. So this is just on the general fund, just kind of the split of our operating funds and where the revenues come from. You'll see 23% of our revenues come from sales tax, property tax is 31% in the general fund, income tax is 20%, and then charges for services are 15%. This is a separation of our general fund expenses by department. You can see the police department is the largest expense for the city at 47%. Public works and engineering, when you add up those different areas, comes up to about 17% of the general fund. Community and economic development are at 8%. And administration is at 18%, but it carries a lot of the citywide expenses like IT, insurance, and transfers to the capital fund. Here's another spreadsheet of, another graph for the general fund by category, and you can see in the general fund that personnel expenses are $10 million, and by far the largest expense the city has in the general fund, and then after that it's contractual services, which include insurance of all types, health insurance, workers' comp, property insurance, consultants, police pension, and utilities. So here's some changes, some reasons why the revenues went up, and the revenues went up and down, and expenses went up and down. So on the left side, you'll see the revenues go up. Our income tax revenue projections come from IML, and we did talk about that a little bit in all of our meetings with you, and they're projecting some growth in corporate profits next year of 1%. So you'll see that our income tax that we get from the state is going to increase. The sales and home rule tax is increasing with the funds that we have going into capital. And our water and sewer rates are increasing according to our ordinance. On the other side, we're expecting the revenue to go down in development because we budget, like I said, very conservatively. Interest income is going down because we're spending down some of those excess reserves that I mentioned at the first slide. And also, we're expecting the feds to lower the interest rate over the next year. City water revenue, that's the amount of revenue we charge ourselves for the use of water. And you'll also see the city water expense going down. This is the year that we put in that non-potable system at the sewer treatment plant. So we're using some of the water that before they redistribute it back out into the streams, we're going to use it for ourselves to clean within the plant, and then we won't have to use treated water that comes from our wells back into that process there. So it's going to save us some money in revenue and expense. The miscellaneous use tax you see is going down. The state of Illinois shifted how that money is coming into the city, and it's part of the reason why our sales tax increased. So you'll see the use tax going down. That comes from the state from online purchases. And then also there's less grants than we had this year. This was the year that we had a number of grants from the state of Illinois that we used for infrastructure and engineering different projects. And we don't have anything in the pipeline right now, or at least not as much as we did last year. Last year was a really good year. From the expense side, wages and benefits are going up in accordance with the union contracts, and also we are proposing one new hire for the city, and that's a building maintenance person. We don't have anybody right now that's taking care of our buildings and overseeing any type of responsibility of maintenance, so we're proposing to put a new person in to do that. We have some additional expenses in IT software and consultant. Like I mentioned, the Microsoft Office increase, moving that up to 2024, and also some additional software that some of the departments are looking at to create some efficiencies within their department. I also mentioned a bit ago that we were increasing some of the events we have. We have an increase in liability and workers' comp insurance due to some high claims that we've had in the last year, and water and sewer consulting due to some EPA requirements. So those are the major areas of revenue and expenses increases and decreases from where we're at this year to next year. So capital projects, we have $17 million of capital projects we plan to construct next year, and then additional to that is $7 million of carryover from this year. So there's some projects that we budgeted for this year that won't be completed in time to finish up, so they have to be carried over to next year. So the number of projects we have is still quite a bit. It's lower than we've had in the previous years, but there's still quite a bit to be done. We have some water main and road reconstruction, some well rehabilitation, some lead replacements, stormwater. And I just want to remind you all the revenue sources for those capital projects. It's home rule sales tax, we have electric tax, a telecom, transfers that come from the general fund from any excess reserves we have, the gas tax that we have, any development fees coming from annexations or road improvements, and then grants that we get from the federal state government. So down in the picture is 12th Street that got done this year, and you could see a before and after picture. So it's much improvement for these projects, and we've really accomplished a lot over the last 10, 11 years. So this is the exhaustive list that Brian and his group put together for next year. It's still a lot of projects on there, but the main project that's out is the 11th Street. So this year we did 12th Street. Next year we're planning on doing 11th Street from Hamilton to Garfield. And then there's some well rehabs, some road resurfacing like we do every year to make sure that we don't have to go back and do those road reconstructions like we have through the historic district for the last 10 years. So if we stay on top of the maintenance, then we're hoping to not have to do the road reconstructions in the manner that we've inherited at this point. So that's the full list of everything that we intend to do next year. So Brian and his group will be awfully busy again next year. So here's some equipment and building capital expenses that we have. A sign truck, we always purchase new squad cars every year as we have a replacement program. City Hall needs some HVAC. Unfortunately, our system that we've had from the 1980s is not doing very well, and it's causing a lot of leaks in our building, and our boiler's on its last leg. So we are going to go out to bid in the springtime to have some new HVAC in this building, well deserved. We're looking for a crane truck in the water department, and the sewer department's looking for a forklift and some PLC replacements at the lift stations to automate some of those things there. So moving forward, next meeting, November 20th, we'll do the public hearing so we can hear from our public as to their feedback from the budget and what they think, whether we're staying in line with our strategic plan and what the public is asking us to do with the revenues we bring in. And we'll also be doing the property tax presentation, the property tax levy presentation, and then we'll be seeking approval of the budget and the property tax levy at the December 4th meeting to wrap up the year. So any questions from council?
Yeah, great presentation, Lisa, and thanks for meeting with everybody individually over the last few weeks, so I appreciate
Yes,
it.
yes, lots of time put in behind the scenes to get us to the point of where we're at today, so thank you.
I just want to thank Brian and Lisa and the rest of the council for moving up some of the 11th Street improvements. It's been a long time coming and it's really the last really major street in town. And wow, we've done a good job over the last 10 years.
Definitely done a lot, so. Okay. All right, thank you, Lisa, and we'll look forward to the public hearing. All right, next, 81, looking for,
It's the committee of the whole, so 18.
yeah, oh yeah, so we want to make sure we get all our definitions for smoke shop, tobacco shop, all in line with our code.
Yes.
So please, Senator, lay it on us.
Yes, Mayor, members of the City Council, this is the final piece of the relook and rewrite of the tobacco shop. As you recall, earlier this year, a moratorium was set in place for any new tobacco license, so the City Council could study whether or not the tobacco shop should be redefined from 80% to 20% of the sale, triggering the definition of the tobacco shop. And earlier in October, the City Council approved the amendment to Chapter 134, restructuring the tobacco license into 3 classes, 1 for the non-tobacco shops, T2 for the tobacco shop, and T3 for the smoke shop. So this is the final piece, the amendment to Chapter 156 of the zoning code that will lower the sale of tobacco products from 80% to 20% as the triggering number to meet the definition of tobacco shop. In addition, tobacco shop and smoke shops should be located in C1, C2, C2T, and C3 as a special use. With that, I know we deliberated and discussed this topic many, many times, but if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. The one thing to note is that the Planning and Zoning Commission did hold a public hearing back earlier this year, well, actually October 8th, and voted to recommend approval of the amendment to the zoning code.
Okay, any further thoughts on it?
Yeah, Lance, is the C2T zoning, is that over by the Holiday Inn? Is that the only example we have of that in
That's
town?
the only existing one, but it's an overlay district that can be applied for if somebody downtown wants it. The genesis of it was really a lot of our small lots on State Street that were zoned C2, but there is no way that you could ever develop it as C2 if we follow our code. So we created the C2T district when we did the zoning rewrite in 2020 to be able to accommodate those properties primarily, and it's also offered us some other opportunities, to your point, in some other areas in the city as well.
So if I bought one of those townhouses that's going in, I'd still need to get a special use permit to have a smoke shop on the first floor
Correct.
of my townhouse?
Yes.
Okay. It wouldn't just be kind of okay to do,
Correct.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's all good.
And honestly, for that.
Sorry.
For that particular question, I mean, the HOA in that development will have a lot more to say about uses than we
Sure.
will, honestly.
Cool. Okay. No, that's a good question. Anything else? We comfortable with consent then? All right, consent it is. AT2, this is for creating a liquor license, actually specifically for the Summit Ice Arena. So what do you got there, Sunny?
Yes, Mayor, member of the City Council, as we seen on the Prime Boulevard, the dome is up. The first part of the ice hockey center that will hopefully open in December. The owner has requested the ability to sell and serve alcohol while adult patrons watch hockey games. So this will create a Class 0 or O liquor license that will allow the on-site consumption only, the retail sale of alcohol. And there's no current restriction on it. It's like a general, typical liquor license. Obviously, the operator would have to be, have procedures set in place so that no underage alcohol consumption would be allowed, and they would have to get dram shop insurance, any other requirements that a typical liquor licensee would need. So if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Well, this just popped into my head, so the next inevitable step in somebody who gets a liquor license, especially when there's going to be a lot of adults looking for something to do, they're going to come request a video gaming license. So I would recommend that in this new classification, that a video gaming license not be allowed.
I mean, I did tell them, these guys particularly, that that's not something that we would grant with it, but I think it's not a bad idea to officially put it in if we're creating a new category, just so I don't have to say that every time to somebody. So I don't have a problem adding that to this kind of classification.
What's the plan for this place? Like, is it a cart where you buy beer?
No, basically they have a restaurant area. So if you're going up there and you're buying some brats and something.
Yeah, but if it's a restaurant, why can't we give them why can't they operate under the license that already is there so that we can ensure that there's food being served?
Sure.
Instead of Jimmy sitting there watching his kid practice hockey
Well,
for 4 hours,
yeah.
getting wrecked.
So what exactly was the conversation
Well,
with them?
if I could address that, I don't think a lot of people realize, but for instance, the bowling alley has the actual Class A or B. It's like a bar license, but kids go in there to bowl. They limit the consumption of alcohol in that area where they serve pizza. They don't have a restaurant license. People think that they have a restaurant license. They don't. So this is similar to that. A restaurant is typically put out to the public that it's a restaurant. It's a sit, dine in. You don't go to a hockey stadium to sit in and dine in. That's not the primary purpose of going there. This is just an added benefit. If there are the definition of a restaurant in our code, and it would have to be, you have to have a certain occupancy, you have to, put yourself out as a restaurant. And
Right,
this
so
is-
if they're not just doing simple food, like stadium food, then they have to have a range hood and all these other, they'd have to become a full-blown restaurant in order to get it. So this allows them to sell more stadium-style food without.
We're not requiring him to do anything, except giving him permission to sell alcohol.
Yeah, other than that's just what the plan is to build it. You can predicate it if you guys want. We can predicate it on like it's granted with making sure that the food element is up and running. And it's not bad because we've done it with other things as well. So just saying, hey, listen, we can grant this when the food items are available with it. So it doesn't go before.
Right.
They
And
go
he's-
in conjunction.
So he asked for the ability to sell alcohol during games. We're proposing to give him the ability to sell alcohol all the time.
Yeah, I mean, when the stand is open, yes.
Yeah.
So, but I think the idea of having it, we've done it with other liquor licenses, right? We don't give new liquor licenses that don't have food elements. And so I think because we're making a new classification, quantifying it with gaming, quantifying it and ensuring that food elements go with it is, I think it's a fine idea. I don't have a problem adding that to it so that it's not just, it's part of the ordinance.
Well, I'm thinking like, does Delwood and their baseball fields come to us next and say, it'd be really nice for people to be able to have a beer and watch a baseball game?
Owned by the Park District, though.
Yeah.
It's a different entity that owns it.
Unless
Yeah,
it's
yeah, the park dis-
unless it's a baseball field, it isn't. I mean,
But, yeah,
I'm just,
Or the Bodome.
yeah, or the Bodome across the street.
and that's fine. So now it says, like, that's fine, we don't have to grant it. You gotta remember, as a liquor commissioner, I don't have to grant it to anybody. It's like the one autonomous thing out there. But I think adding to it, the food element is in line with other things that we've done with liquor licenses.
Can we
So-
have a last call?
You could limit the hours. I mean, you could limit it to only when the hockey game's in operation. You know, this is not something like it's going to turn into a tavern. It's not going to, people aren't going to go to a hockey stadium just thinking that it's a bar. You know, people are there for other purposes. The primary purpose is to watch a hockey game. So you can put in there that, you know, food items and lists, you know, including but not, you know, limited to chips, you know, hot dogs or things like that in that nature. And you could also limit the hours. If you wanted to close earlier at 11 a.m., you know, I don't think the operator would have any issues with closing it at 11 a.m.
You know, I think we're making a little bit too big of a problem here. Every hockey stadium has a great restaurant, and it's not just stadium food. It's actually, you can order off a menu if you want.
That's not what we're saying.
Well, but you're saying that, you know, you want to limit, you know.
No, I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate to just granting a liquor license to a building.
Well, but
Because we can say that people aren't coming to
hockey buildings do have
drink.
liquors, you know, a bar,
But
an
Original
actual
Six,
bar.
like I'm talking
Yeah.
about, Orland Park has Original Six Bar and Grill inside of their
Right,
arena.
right.
It's a restaurant.
Correct.
It has
And-
windows
right.
that look out onto the ice.
So.
And if
but-
they, and if
Without
they.
a plan, you have really no idea what they're proposing other than selling beer there.
Right, and so I don't think it's wrong-headed. And if they were to open something that's more expensive than a restaurant, I think we'd all be fine with it. But knowing that that's not how they're building this out, ensuring that there's some food element is in line with what we've done in the past. And so this is, you know, committee of the whole. So why don't we, let's put it down as our note. We'll reach out to the Olsons this week and we'll ask them, hey, look, we really want to make sure there's food elements that go with this. So we want to make sure that that's in line with this and,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's perfectly fine with.
I think it should have a cutoff time, too. I don't know anything about hockey. I don't, you know, like, in baseball,
Though, but sometimes they don't get ice time until 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I don't think but I think there should be some hours sent to this because it should not be open for the people who finally get ice time at 1 o'clock in the morning to finally think, oh, I can go and have a beer. No, it should be part of
gonna be
when you are,
snatched by then.
when you are there, when you are there viewing one of their games. And I think the public doesn't realize we don't have a lot of public access to that facility. I mean, we have, 2 hockey teams who are going to be performing there. And we're not going to be involved in their practice time, and we're not going to be involved, I mean, we're only open to that place when they are, you know, performing games.
But no,
So-
well, they do have open skate, they do have rental skate, I mean, they
But
do.
it sounded to be like the hours were going to be very,
Yeah, I think primarily it deals with hockey leagues, there's no doubt, but I do know that that is one of the reasons they purchased all the rental skates and stuff like that, is to have it open. But all these ice hockey rinks get
Yeah,
booked
and
up
I guess
fast.
maybe I misunderstood. I was under the impression that it's more of a youth hockey facility.
I would say it's its primary purpose, but they do have the whole rental section part of this that they want to do, so it's just.
Which is very common for hockey stadiums.
No, I'm not saying it's uncommon, but the facility in Orland Park has a bar and grill with its own name.
All right,
Its
so
own,
let-
it's a restaurant within.
so let-
Inland, I think it's in, is it
I
Inland?
think in.
Over in Joliet, let me
yeah.
finish for a second.
I'm
The
sorry.
one over in Joliet, same thing, Inwood, has Semino's that's within the building, but it's its own restaurant.
It's probably because they rent the space out. It's not.
Sure, but there's no,
Inwood is also.
yeah, I would love to know the
That's all right.
idea.
I think we have
Yeah.
good direction. We're gonna reach out to them, tell them their food element needs to go with it. Let's find out exactly what the food element is. I know it's not a full-blown restaurant, but
Sure.
I think it should be more than chips, right? So let's find out what the food element is. And then we'll talk to them a little bit about what their vision is for game times. So if this is a 9 o'clock cutoff, or if they're like, make a case that it needs to be 11 PM, and this is why, right? It's like, I think we can hear them out and figure out what the needs are, so.
And if it's during games, what's the problem with that?
All right, so let's
I'm
reach
most
out this
concerned
week.
about
Yes.
the guy camping out there for a 4-hour practice for his kid and not having, food available to him. Like, 4 hours is plenty of time to put some damage in. And
They can always do the Jonathan Pugh and bring their flask, right?
Yeah, well, and ultimately, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that it's not a draw on the resources that we have at our police department, or that it's a public safety issue, because that's my responsibility to you guys. And so I wanted to ask the questions. I think you mix, my $8,000 a year youth hockey costs with my child on the ice,
Yeah,
playing
right,
one of the
right.
most aggressive and violent sports. Nothing wrong with it. I like hockey. And alcohol, I think that's a pretty good mix for what might be an issue. And I'd hate for that to kind of boil out into the streets. So it's just, I would like to get some more concrete plan around it before just saying, yeah, sell beer. Because it could just be a guy with, a box in front of him mixing cocktails and walking through the bleachers. I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
Renee's
again,
already in line.
I'm not a teetotaler.
Stadiums that I've been in,
It's not a stadium, it's an
Yes,
arena.
it's all right.
Stadiums are big.
We have direction.
Yeah.
We can move on.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks,
Next,
guys.
we've got, thank you, Jonathan. I do appreciate your insights. Seriously. All right, next is facade site improvement grant for 116, 129.
Thank you, Mayor. This is related to Resolution 24-110. The applicant Teakwood LLC, represented by Tyler Tomzak on behalf of the owner Christopher Flood, is requesting funds through the city's facade and site improvement grant program to tuck point the front and rear of the building. The proposed tuck point work is within conformance of the Secretary of the Interior design standards and does not require a COA from Heritage and Architecture Commission. This request is part of a larger request where the remainder will be requested in 2025's budget. The reason for the current request is that the applicant needs to accomplish the tuck pointing this fall before he can re-roof the building and work on all the interior improvements over the winter. Those are non-eligible items, and so he's going to look to do the exterior eligible items in the spring. The remainder of the project will include windows and storefront glass, doors, architectural repairs to the front facade. They are all grant-eligible items and approved by the H&A Commission at a meeting earlier this year. Recognizing the current allocated expenditures in the program, the applicant is willing to defer that work until a new budget is allocated in January. 2 contractor bids were received for the tuck pointing work. They were in your packet. The facade grant program allows for a 50% match up to $20,000 per facade and $10,000 for site improvements with a maximum of $50,000 per property, inclusive of architectural fees. The applicant is eligible for $20,315, which is $30,630 times 50%, and they included $5,000 in architectural fees as a part of this request based on the tuck pointing quotes provided. We recommend approval of the facade grant request and a motion to place it on consent or action at the next meeting.
Yeah, anybody, any questions, concerns on this one? Good with.
Are there currently any occupants on the first floor there?
It is vacant currently. Okay. Yeah, there's a fairly, in your packet, there were all the architectural plans. It will be a very extensive interior renovation as well, but they have a leaking roof. And the masonry wraps the parapet, and so they need to do the tuck pointing before they can put the new roof on. And so if they don't get that done, they can't do any work this winter.
Cool. Thanks, Lance.
All right, so we good with consent? Okay, consent it is. All right, and then we're going to move on to our concept plan for Cedar Ridge. So let me just say a few things to help kind of set up the meeting. I know a lot of times when new subdivisions come on, it creates a lot of anxiety, right? Especially for people who live right next door, and that's understandable. But I kind of want to give just everybody a quick understanding of the process and try to help alleviate some anxiety, because I know sometimes people fill out cards and they want to come up and they talk and, they're nervous. I don't want anybody to be nervous. I don't want anybody to feel like this isn't a conversation We're going to hear a presentation, council members will ask some questions, and then you guys come up and, add to your questions, speak out your concerns. Maybe some of them will be answered during the presentation. But basically what happens with these kinds of things is a lot of projects we have what's called legacy zoning. Years ago, in the early 2000s, late 90s, a lot of aggressive expansion in the Lockport was going on. That's why when you look at our maps, you can see how far out, say, Victoria Crossings, reached out. It's one of the reasons Homer Glen became a city. They were panicking that Lockport was going to just go all the way, to Will Cook Road or something, and so they became a city to kind of put a buffer on that. And, there was all this aggressive expansion, but then in 2008, the recession happened, and a lot of those subdivisions and those properties that were granted zoning at the time just follow. And so they still have zoning, and so sometimes council, we have to kind of respond to, projects like this, the developers looking to, build in it. It's not something that, we're annexing in or doing new. It's like we have to respond to what the zoning is. And there's some caveats to this particular zoning where it doesn't have to be R1, R2, R3, but R1 is going to end up being required. And we'll hear more about that as the presentation goes on. But I just want to try to let everybody know that this is a concept plan. This is not a final approval plan. This is where we talk about what can work within the zoning requirements that the property owner has. So hopefully it has kind of set the tone a little bit, and know that everybody here is welcome, and I'm glad you're here for, the feedback, so.
Can I just add one more thing? Lance, before we get started, can you give the definitions of R1, R2, R3, and R4?
Sure. So R1 is your basic kind of detached single-family home. It is our largest regular-sized lot in the city. R2, so only 1 unit per lot. R2 is next level up in quantity of homes that could be on a lot or within one building. We allow for up to 4 units in one building. Good example of that is the new Silo Bend townhomes that have 4 units in each one of those buildings. Those would be the maximum in R2. R2 also allows for a slightly smaller detached single-family lot. So 1 home on 1 lot, but it can be a smaller size. R3 expands that 4 units to a maximum of 8 units. So you can have up to 8 units. Could be side by side, could be 2 stories tall, whatever the configuration is, it can be up to 8 units. And then you could also have just simple single-family homes detached on a smaller lot. So we have the largest lots in R1, medium-sized lots in R2, smallest size lots in R3. R4 is typically only reserved for our multi-story apartment level type thing. So the new Springs and Lockport development that's currently going up northeast of Pop's Beef, that is an R4 project.
All right, so lay it on us.
All right, this is related to Resolution 24-109. The applicant, MI Homes of Chicago, is seeking feedback from the city prior to moving to the final development plan review. The subject property is located south of Cedar Ridge subdivision and was known as the old Site 2 of the Steeplechase McNaughton project. So this is back in 2006. For those that were around, Paul McNaughton of McNaughton Development came through and had gotten options on a whole series of different properties throughout this eastern portion of the city. And you can see all the different sites that were put an option on, including the blue dashed line that kind of S-curves up from Bruce Road on the bottom of the screen up to an arrow that points over to Victoria Crossings, the western portion of Victoria Crossings. That was what was called the middle alignment, which I know many of you have spent a lot of time on related to where it was going to go. The middle alignment at the time in 2006, that was the preferred routing. to get up to 159th Street once that was ultimately built out. This site 2 was the furthest south portion of it. Cedar Ridge was actively going through the process at the same time here. The original plan for the McNaughton development steeplechase was for distribution facilities. And every property that you see on here was going to be distribution type buildings. That ultimately did not proceed forward, and as a reaction to a lot of community members, as a reaction to a lot of plan commission and city council direction, they reverted back to a residential product. And so that's where Silo Bend currently, which was Site 3 and 4, is what is Silo Bend today. Site 7 is what Silo Bend West fell on. Site 5 has never been brought before City Council or even staff with a proposal for that project. And then Site 2 all the way far on the far section of the south. And the reason why Site 2 was a part of that was because of the middle alignment, that road would have connected all of these properties together and they would have been able to access it, because there was also a future interchange at Bruce Road that was going to accommodate on traffic for trucks and other vehicles as they went on and off site into the park. So just some background on that. Go back one. The subject property is 78 acres and zoned R1, R2, and R3 per the city's zoning official map that you see on your screen. The subject property is outlined in red. A reversion was included in the original annexation agreement, and it expressly stated that the property would revert to a R1 single-family zoning should the council take action to do so. The agreement outlined that the development plans and the zoning for those 3 categories were specific to an active adult age-restricted community. So Lago Vista, think Lago Vista, that's in essence what that was. And the original plan that I'll show here in a little bit outlined what was included in that. As you might imagine, it was up to 6-unit townhomes. It was up to duplexes throughout a portion of the center section of the site, and then smaller lot, single-family detached homes around the edges of the site. But I'll go through that here shortly. The item went before the Plan and Zoning Commission at their regularly scheduled meeting on October 8th, 2024. Questions came up related to, questions from the public came up related to the size of the lots and the interior of the development that were different than the neighboring residence lots, having a different character. I'm going to pull this up. 2 density concerns. The area has a history of having major flooding issues, and one resident claimed that the water table is abnormally high in this location. Substantial flooding has occurred often. Concern for additional cars on Bruce Road and at the intersections at Cedar as well as Gauger, and residents asked for more open space and had questions about the number of school-aged children being introduced into the area schools and the district. The member of the commission also had questions related to the price points of the housing, the zoning, just getting confirmation on that, and the importance of housing diversity to people that are interested in coming into town. The five commissioners of the 7 were present and voted 3-2 to recommend approval of the concept plan. And then subsequent to the Plan Zoning Commission meeting, staff identified a series of answers to questions that were asked either by residents, by the commissioners, or by emails that we got from various residents as well after the meeting too. And I'm going to go through a number of those components, but I want to walk through the plan itself that you see on your screen. A lot of the numbers obviously are on the left side. The site data, that shows the number of units that would be for each type of property. So the single family, what we have termed small lot, which would be the 43 by 120 properties, there are 106 of those on this plan. The single family 65-foot wide lots by 120 and 75-foot by 120. Those are currently existing in Silo Bend. So all the single family detached homes are either a 65 or a 75-foot wide lot there. And then we had the Lincoln Square series, which is the townhomes. Those have a maximum of 6 units per building. So that would be the R3 component of it. And then followed on by detention and open space, 18.4 acres, and then the gas pipeline easement that runs along the east portion of it. It's about an 85-foot wide swath of property that runs north to south all the way along the east side. On the plan that you see on the right side, in essence, it is all single-family detached individual lot ownership property throughout the entire property, with the exception of the southwest corner of it. That is where the Lincoln Square townhome series would be located at. Connections at Sprucewood Drive and on Bruce Road, as well as a potential future connection at Ron Court if the 33C would ever construct a facility that would allow for kids to be able to get over to the school, or for parents to drop off without having to go out onto Bruce Road and then come back into the site. Having some level of interior connection would be helpful for that. Ron Court is a Homer Glen managed road, so there would need to be some coordination as it relates to that. From the Plan and Zoning Commission meeting, the applicant took a lot of the comments related to the smaller lots and the proximity of the townhomes in the northwest corner of the property on the previous plan and made some modifications. The previous slide that I showed is the modified plan. This is showing one of the modifications that they made. The left side is what was presented at Plan and Zoning Commission and ultimately recommended for approval. That one included 59 townhomes and 21 small lot single-family homes. The plan on the right is the updated plan before you tonight. That includes 19 65-foot wide lots and 19 small lot homes, so that's a 42 home reduction up in that north section. They heard a number of the residents that were in Cedar Ridge and wanted to respond to some of that related to the density that was more proximate to their particular area of the development as well. There were already all single-family lots along the east edge, so there weren't any modifications related to that, with the exception of one minor modification that added 2 homes along the south section, south of where the Ron Court right-of-way is. Those changed from 75-foot wide lots to 65-foot wide lots, so that was an addition of 2. But again, the home type between the 65 and the 75 foot is no different. It's the exact same home that you would find on both. And again, you can drive through Silo Bend, and both of those home lot sizes are in Silo Bend. Some other contextual information, the zoning I mentioned before, the 2009 annexation agreement allowed for the 3 different zoning categories tied to an active adult community. There was the reversion provision that I went over before, that if a successor owner, which is what MI Homes would be, proposes a plan that's not specific to an active adult senior living, the property would be considered as an existing R1 zoning property. Plan comparisons, what you see on your screen is the original Steeplechase Site 2 plan. This one had 61 or 81 6-unit townhomes. Those are in the blue on the left side of the plan. They had 88 duplex units, which is primarily in the middle of the plan, and 97 small lot detached single family, which is throughout the remainder of the plan. Total unit count of 266 units. Park is generally in the same area as what we have it on the Sadie Ridge plan. It's about 2 times the size on the Sadie Ridge plan than what it was on the original Site 2 plan. Just as a comparison as far as things that were included in it, both plans include small lot detached single family homes. The square footage sizes are shown on your screen. Both plans include townhomes of up to 6 units per building. Both plans include bike paths and connections to Cedar Ridge's paths, although the 2024 plan includes about 2 times as many trails in it as what the original plan did. Both plans include a roughly 2.5 acre park that would be accessible by both the Homer Glen residents to the east as well as Cedar Ridge residents to the north. Both plans include a right-of-way connection but no street to Ron Court in case the school site develops. Both plans include stormwater in the same general locations, although the 2024 plan includes slightly more on the site plan than the 2009 plan. The 2024 plan included 8 6-unit buildings. The 2009 plan had 13. The 2024 plan had 173 attached single-family home. The 2009 plan had 161, And the 2024 plan includes 145 detached single-family homes, and the 2009 plan had 97. This is a comparison for the Sadie Ridge site plan. The yellow are the Cedar Ridge sized lots, so if you see the single-family homes in Cedar Ridge, those lots are consistent. Cedar Ridge is a little bit deeper, but not much wider than the lots proposed in Sadie Ridge. The small lot detached single-family of 106 units in the middle in the green, and then the 4 to 6 unit townhomes, 81 units down in the lower right-hand corner, or lower left-hand corner, excuse me, that is shown in blue, a total unit count of 278 with the modifications that were made to the plan. When you compare it to Cedar Ridge itself, there are 156 units of 4 to 6 unit, or just 4 unit in Cedar Ridge, 156 units shown in blue, and the Sadie Ridge sized lots, again, consistent with that, there are 184 units for that, so there are 340 units shown in the Cedar Ridge plans. And we get a lot of questions about why there's so much open space in Cedar Ridge versus some of the other developments. This is all the floodplain that is included on Cedar Ridge's property. And so when they were developing and planning the layout for Cedar Ridge, they couldn't infringe on a lot of this floodplain area. And so it restricted where they could or couldn't build. And so that increased the size of the property, but obviously it inherently accrued some additional open space than what would have been found in a normal development. These are some comparable architecture, and I want to be clear on the architecture components of it. The council does not, as a part of this resolution, approve architecture as a component of it. We only approve the concept site plan. So these are comparable to show what the intention is to build on something like this. Once we get through a concept plan at a staff level, taking comments from city council as well as plan commission members and integrating our design guidelines and our material standards, we go through with the developer and start to develop a number of different ways to approach the architecture for this. As you might imagine, we've gone through that on a fairly significant basis in Silo Bend for the classic home series, which is what you see on your screen primarily. So we did a fair amount of work on that. That had 6 different model types with 6 different elevations for each one. So it offered 36 different ways to approach the architecture. So that was included in that. The small lot homes, these are what was shown as a comparable image to what could be there for the small lot home. And then for the Lincoln Square townhomes, this is a comparable image for what could be shown or what could be done there. But again, all of this will get filtered through both your comments as well as our design guidelines, design standards, and exterior material standards that we have codified. Related to the schools, note that this particular property, the Sadie Ridge property, was included in the demographic forecast that was developed by McKibben Demographic Research Associates in 2021 that LTHS did on behalf of the feeder districts and themselves. What you see outlined in red are the student counts, projected counts for both Homer 33C as well as 205. What you'll notice primarily a lot in 205 is there is a relatively significant decline of students that is projected, kind of bottoming out in about 2028, 2029, down to about 3,304 students. As I've talked with Dr. McBride and some other senior staff members at LTHS, these trends are tracking nearly exactly to the person what was forecast at the time. So our actuals are turning out to be real. I also had a conversation with the superintendent at 33C to get a better understanding for whether their numbers are also tracking with these. Their numbers are, for sure, so they are seeing their student populations decline slightly, but what they wanted to make sure that I noted for all of you is that their student type has changed. So through the pandemic, and it's happened at the high school as well, there have been a lot more IEP special needs kids that have come out of the pandemic because of all the stuff that happened with that. That's not they don't require the same amount of space as a typical student. They require a little bit more, and they require a little bit smaller class size with a new teacher. So, as most people know, 33C is under construction on a 30,000 square foot addition to Hadley between Homer Junior High and Hadley. That will accommodate a lot of what they need, and that has projected them to clear them through the next 10-ish years. And they also have some planned improvements to the other elementary schools as a part of their capital planning efforts. They were not opposed to the development. They just wanted to make sure that the city council knew kind of the trends that they were seeing in their student population and what that has meant for them on the facilities side. The Bruce Road interchange, this was a concept that the city had authorized to try and update what an interchange would look like with today's standards. Obviously, it was originally kind of laid out in 2000, probably the late 2000s, because that was when all the design for the Veterans Memorial Tollway was going forward. We wanted to refresh that with any new standards that are coming online. The yellow dashed line that you see on that is the Sadie Ridge proposed site, so you can see how proximate that is to the interchange and how close that would be, whether it be noise, sound, or other things related to that. That's one of the reasons why the developer is looking to put the townhomes closer to that corner, because it seemed more appropriate to have something that's a little bit higher density, closer to a higher intensity roadway than to have that further away. The location of the entrance aligns with where this location had put entrance ramps as it relates to the bridge cone, so the vertical rise as you start to go over the Bruce Road Bridge, over the tollway. That entrance location is about where that would be as it relates to where the bridge cone hits grade on the surrounding properties, being the best point to enter a property. There's no need to go through a lot of the other detail related to the design of the interchange. Suffice it to say that this is what an interchange would look like if and when it's built at some point in the near future. As I had pointed out on the earlier plan, that middle alignment was an effort that had gone pretty far down the road, not full design documents, but they were advancing it. And so as I've talked with some of you earlier, if you think back, we didn't even have the tollway 15 years ago. It was a non-existent, and Gauger Road was still a chip and seal road, two-lane road, and so was 159th Street. So if you think about the pace of change in our infrastructure since that point and the dramatic changes that has made, this is certainly something, although not funded currently, could be in the future, whether it's a part of another development that would be proximate to this, or whether it is part of a new bridge plan that would resurrect itself since it was put on the shelf a couple years ago. So I wanted to put that out there so that everybody kind of had a sense for what that looked like. From a traffic standpoint, a traffic study is not required during concept plan phase of the project, but it will be a significant part of the final development plan phase of the project. We do that for all of our projects, and all traffic studies are reviewed by a third-party consultant that reviews it on the city's behalf, not on the developer's behalf. We totally heard a lot of the residents as well as the plan commissioners related to the Gauger Bruce Road intersection, as well as the Cedar Road Bruce Road intersection. Working with Will County, we will be a major part of that effort. We worked with Will County for the Silo Bend Division Street because they do have jurisdiction over Division Street as well. So that's why you see the dedicated left turn lanes at the entrance to Silo Bend. You see the deceleration lanes that you have at the entrance to Silo Bend. So all of those components will certainly be taken into consideration and studied in a great amount of detail if this is approved to move forward into that next phase. From a soil standpoint, we also certainly heard the residents who live and look at the dirt every day, and the developer, as is typical, isn't going to do soil borings and depth studies and soil quality studies until they have some level of confidence that they should move into that phase and expend those funds to do those efforts. But it's in their best interest, obviously, to make sure that the soils have structural capacity to hold up a home. If it doesn't, then they'll need to either look at walking on the project or amending the soil in some fashion to be able to support that. Drainage was another significant topic that came up at the Plan Commission meeting, and there are a couple graphics. I'm actually going to have one of the applicant's representatives come up and kind of walk everybody through these. This is the conceptual level of engineering that kind of goes into a concept plan, and I'll have Russ go ahead and walk through that.
Good evening. Russ Whitaker with MI Homes. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm going to kind of slow walk our way through some of this stuff, try to dumb it down a little bit so that we have some understanding of what the drainage functions like and what it would look like. Again, as Lance mentioned, this is all preliminary detail. We haven't done actual engineering for the site. But given the feedback we heard at the Plan Commission meeting, we thought it was responsible to, as Lance mentioned, make some site plan changes to update, but then also to lean into some additional information on drainage. So we've got two different images here. The image on the left is going to be existing drainage pattern. The image on the right is going to be proposed drainage pattern. So we're going to start talking a little bit about that image on the left. A couple of key issues being identified in this exhibit. We're going to start talking about the watershed. So there's a line through the middle of the exhibit. It's a line with open boxes that represents the natural drainage divide. Property to the north of this line flows to the west and is tributary to Fraction Run. Property to the south of this divide flows south and is tributary to Spring Creek. You can catch my cursor here. So this is the line I'm referencing here. So you can see the line with the open boxes. This is the watershed divide line. The watershed divide is a fixed metric. In general, we must maintain the natural balance between watersheds. So then within each of the two watersheds, we also have two distinct drainage areas. In the Fraction Run watershed to the north, those drainage areas are depicted in yellow and in orange. The red arrows pointing westward from each of these drainage districts shows the location and direction of water flow from each drainage area. So those arrows are here from the yellow area, here from the orange area. Notably, none of the water from these drainage areas is tributary to either Cedar Ridge, which would be here to the north, or to Colonial Acres, which would be here to the east. In the Spring Creek watershed, there are two drainage areas that are depicted in green and blue. So we see those down here. The blue drainage area is the green drainage area is 16.6 acres and outfalls southeasterly to Bruce Road. The blue drainage area is approximately 21 acres. The blue area outfalls southwesterly towards Bruce Road, ultimately flowing through an existing culvert under Bruce Road and then southerly through the Cedar Path Nursery. So just tracking that real quick. Green area, 16.6 acres. You see the outfall here towards Bruce Road, and that is flowing further to the west. You see the blue area here, kind of hard to read that, but it's 20.95 acres, roughly 21 acres. This area outfalls in this direction right towards Colonial Acres. And then you see the red arrows here are reflective of the culvert that is under Bruce Road and then pushes that water further to the south.
What are the elevations on the ISOs on the map between them?
So the numbers down here, I think the contour line, this red contour line here is like 716, 717. There's a high spot on Bruce Road in this area that's at about 720. So there's a divide in the drainage swale along Bruce Road. What we're depicting in this brighter blue here is an area that sort of inundates with water. The water's flowing under Bruce Road, and it hits a natural high point to the south. When it hits that natural high point to the south, it starts backing up, and then it's backing up into the rear yards of these properties in Colonial Acres, and it's also backing up into this blue area here. It generally stops in this general direction here because that's where water's flowing the opposite direction all the way up at 720. Does that answer your question?
It's good information. I was looking at like in the high spot there between the green and the blue, where we've got the ISO lines. What are the contour, the elevations of the contour? Are there differences between those? Is it a tenth of a foot or
Oh,
A foot?
between each contour.
Yeah.
You know what, I think that, because I believe this is all run off of county topo. I believe these are 2-foot contours, but you know what, I'm guessing we have topo from the site at this point in time, so everything on site may actually be 1-foot contours. Okay. We've engaged the engineer,
Sure.
but they're not fully in design yet, so
Right.
those are things we'd certainly work towards as we were moving forward. That sort of outlines what's happening in its current condition, right? You've got notably half of the site flowing to the east, half of the site flowing to the west in that south watershed. So when we look at when we flip to this map over here and start looking at the proposed condition, you can see that the watershed line, we've balanced grading activity north and south of the watershed line to respect natural balance between watersheds. You can see that it's not super rigid. There's some area here that will flow to the north that is south of the watershed line, but we balance those areas here and here, and so it's a little bit of an offset. The point of emphasis in this exhibit is the drainage areas. So the pink area, the entirety of the pink area, which is the Fraction Run watershed, will flow to a new stormwater management basin. That basin will outfall westerly, following existing drainage patterns. None of this water is tributary to either Cedar Ridge or Colonial Acres. So you can see here, we've got arrows within the pink area that are pointing to the direction of water flow. So here you've got the gas line easement along the entire eastern side of the property. You can see water in this direction is flowing northerly. We're picking it up, pushing it back this way. Everything's flowing to the east. Flowing to the west, ultimately through modern storm sewer structures into the managed stormwater basin, and then that basin will outflow here to the west as it generally does in its current configuration. The blue area represents a much more substantial change. I would note that there is a large light blue area, which consists of approximately 37 acres. There's also a much smaller bright blue area at the southwest corner of the property, which is approximately 1 acre. So we're over here. You can see the light blue here, which is predominant in the south watershed now. You see the bright blue section, which is just this small 1 acre section in the southeast portion of the site. The entirety of the light blue area is now tributary to 2 new consolidated detention basins along Bruce Road. We see those basins here. Those detention basins are equalized with a pipe between them. That equalization is represented by this arrow here showing the connection of the 2 basins. The basins then ultimately outfall southwesterly to the Bruce Road drainage swale. So we see that outfall here. That outfall is matching the outfall in its existing condition here. Again, I note that there's a roughly 720 elevation along Bruce Road. So none of this water hitting the Bruce Road drainage swale is flowing back easterly. It is all flowing westerly. The bright blue area follows the existing drainage pattern, flowing southeasterly and through a culvert under Bruce Road. So we're here, the water's continuing in its existing drainage pattern. At 1 acre, we've reduced the area of this drainage area by 95%. We would love to ultimately eliminate this drainage area entirely, but limitations associated with the existing gas line easement may prevent that from happening. This is something we can continue working on as the project moves forward. In either case, this is good news for residents of Colonial Acres, as again, we're reducing drainage area tributary to Colonial Acres by 95%. Lance, if you give me the next slide. The one other important point about Colonial Acres, we heard a lot about the function of water and that there were drainage problems in this area. And so again, something that we specifically wanted to investigate quickly. This slide depicts an image of the plat of subdivision from Colonial Acres. I'd note that that's a 1987 subdivision. The area highlighted in blue is a, quote, drainage and retention easement. This drainage easement is 40 feet along the rear lot lines and 120 feet wide as it runs between homes. Along Bruce Road, it is 60 feet wide. Unfortunately, this 1987 subdivision was specifically designed to accommodate water in rear and side yards of homes west of McCarran Court. There is no consolidated detention basin like we're proposing in Sadie Ridge. In Colonial Acres, stormwater management occurs in the yards of individual homeowners. That was how the subdivision was permitted and ultimately constructed. If we pulled up county GIS contours, it becomes very evident where those stormwater basins are located in the rear yards of those homes. MI Homes can't be responsible for re-engineering Colonial Acres, but we can and will provide some relief with the manner in which we engineer Sadie Ridge. By reducing the area of Sadie Ridge that is tributary to the culvert along Bruce Road by 95%, MI will materially reduce the amount of water that is directed at residents in Colonial Acres. I'm going to pause on stormwater there. If there's, that's some kind of technical detail. I'm not an engineer. I like to play one on TV. But if you've got questions on stormwater, I'd be happy to nail those right now.
I mean, I think, like any subdivision or any development that comes in, we know that you'll be thorough on it. I mean, that's the whole point of, going through the next phase. If this were approved, we get it. So I think it's good too that residents hear that, how seriously we take it. So that's understandable. I guess but I don't want to cut anybody off. Anybody have any drainage questions?
Well, I run my dog out there in the area where the radio towers are. So I have been out there on whatever the road is along the bike path out there. And there's an area that very low. I don't know where the water comes from. I mean, there's two places in town where if it rains an inch, there's a deluge of water coming from the northeast. Some of it is coming through Cedar Ridge, and of course, some of it is coming from around 163rd and Cedar Road out there. It's amazing how much water runs through there. So my comment would be engineer. I would ask it to be engineered, and then engineered at about 110%, and then add another 20%. Okay, coming from, because I don't know where that water's coming from. And the amazing thing is, Lance talked about it earlier, that's exactly where the county was proposing to put a 4-lane highway that some members of the council here stopped back in 2019. And it really would have been a mess if that road would have been put in there. So that's all I ask. Over-engineer, and then over-engineer a little bit more to make sure that water on the west side gets out of there.
So, and to that point, the last thing we want to do is have a water problem. I mean, MI Homes is building 600-700 homes a year in the market. In today's world with the internet, it's very easy. You have one problem or two problems with a homeowner, one subdivision problem where there's a water problem, and you now have a reputational problem in not just that community, but in the region, right? And that's affecting your ability to continue on as a business. So we take these things very, very seriously. In talking with the engineer today, we recognize that there's floodplain to the north, there's floodplain to the west. We have engaged with an engineering team, and we'll be doing a floodplain study. The elevation of the floodplain is not entirely determined through all of the stretches here. So we will actually be looking at all of the off-site areas, understanding where that water flow is coming, modeling that, actually understanding and establishing base flood elevations as we go through this process. So there's a lot of information that frankly doesn't exist today because there's not been sophisticated development that's come through this area. But by the time we're done engineering this project, we will have the engineering not only for this project, but we will have baseline information that we're then turning over to the city of Lockport that you will have here forward to better understand where all of that water is coming from. So that's 100% something we will take care of. If there's no other questions on stormwater, I just had just a couple of other remarks regarding MI and sort of our position. I know Lance did a great job going through kind of the issues and the changes. But I wanted to just mention and reiterate that MI has maintained a consistent presence in the Lockport community since 2017. We value the relationships we've built in the community. Staff is always wonderful to deal with. The Plan Commission and the City Council have been supportive of our efforts. I think everyone is proud of the product that MI has delivered to the market over the last 8 years. We've helped grow the community while the village has made, or the city has made inroads on downtown districts and commercial development. Ultimately, our efforts have been complementary. The village's efforts in downtown and growth of commercial corridors has helped us attract home buyers to the city of Lockport. At the same time, our home buyers and the spending power they represent help attract and ultimately sustain commercial businesses that support Lockport's budget that we heard about tonight. Our goal here this evening is simple. We seek to maintain and build upon the presence we've maintained in Lockport over the last 8 years. We are currently building homes in Silo Bend, but the supply of remaining homes is limited. In May, we were before this commission with concept plans for Silo Bend West. Silo Bend West was intended to be a natural extension of MI's success at Silo Bend. MI's plan was to move directly from sales at Silo Bend to sales in Silo Bend West, maintaining a consistent marketing window and a sales presence in the Lockport community. As we got into details associated with that Silo Bend West project, we ultimately came to the realization that Silo Bend West is not a 2025 project. In fact, due to coordination with third-party developers, IDOT improvements to Route to 159th Street, we ultimately believe that Silo Bend West is probably a project that is 2 years of additional planning and engineering before a shovel goes in the ground. To fill the gap between the closeout of Silo Bend and realistic delivery of homes in Silo Bend West, MI developed plans for Sadie Ridge. Sadie Ridge is a 2025 project, one that will allow MI to maintain that constant presence in the city of Lockport, a presence that we believe will ultimately be beneficial to the community as we grow our supply of homes and future residents in turn support the local economy. So with that, we thank you for your time this evening. We had a robust discussion at Plan Commission. As sadistic as it sounds, I enjoy those robust conversations. They're fun. And I assume that some of that conversation is coming here tonight. So we look forward to engaging with you on this project and believe it will be a sound addition to the Lockport community. Thank you.
All right, do you have anything else, Lance, before we hope?
Just one last thing before we kind of turn it over to all of you. Just an identification for the public. What factors go into what is an appropriate concept plan? You have existing zoning or annexation agreements. You have our codes and standards, our design guidelines, so we talked about before for architecture and layout. We have our comprehensive plan. We have the 355 corridor study. We have nearby infrastructure improvements or needs, such as the interchange or expansion of Bruce Road in the future. We have the property's history by itself in the steeplechase component. We have city priorities, what is in our strategic planning efforts, what have we talked about related to housing diversity. We have planning best practices, infrastructure sustainability based on, the homes that are built around it. And if the development solves the surrounding issue, if those of you that were on the council for the Redwood, we talked a lot about the pond that was in Broken Arrow. That was a surrounding issue that was impacting a number of Broken Arrow residents that we were able to resolve with the Redwood. So examples like that are things that we can improve, and I think probably the drainage conversation that we've had here tonight is a similar thing where we can significantly reduce a lot of water that is going towards existing residences and then under Bruce Road. We did receive a picture of what I would probably call a Lake Sadie Ridge earlier this week from a resident that lives on McCarran, and it certainly showed exactly what we saw in those diagrams. And so anything that a development, whether it's this one or some in the future, can do to minimize that amount of water that's going in that particular direction, I think will be an improvement for the neighbors. With that, our recommended motion was in your packet. Again, we're just simply asking that this either be placed on for action or consent at your next meeting.
All right, so let's do this. We'll open it up to our questions, and then after that, we'll go to the comment cards. Just FYI, if there's water, if you guys need some, there's paper cups up here, and that's filtered water in that machine, so feel free to come up if anybody needs any water while we're sitting here. So, in the meanwhile, what kind of questions, thoughts, concerns from council members?
Yes, I had just a couple questions or comments as well, and thank you for all the effort you put into the original plan and then redesigning the plan, so I do appreciate that. But one of my concerns, in this concept plan is the S-curve on Cedar Road where it meets Bruce. It's a very dangerous road. There's been a lot of fatalities on that road. It's poorly lit. It's a very dangerous road. And I know you're about to do the traffic study at some, after this concept plan gets approved, but I really want to highlight the importance of the safety of that area and doing something, whether it's a stoplight or lights or blinking lights, something to make it more safe. So that was one of my big concerns for that area, and with the amount of homes and teenage drivers, I think that's something that we really want to stress. And then the other, not quite as important as that, but it is still important to me, is the facade of the smaller homes. There's a big, garage and a door and then a small window. So if there's any way in the plans to do something with that, to have a bigger window or just something so it looks like there's life in the house. You can't even really see it. It's just a door on the first level, that is. So something to help alleviate that, whether it's, back, like alley, garage, or even a front porch, or just something to help with that, because it just aesthetically doesn't look good. It doesn't look warm and welcoming. And, that's about all I have for now.
I agree with Susan. I like the idea of having garages in the back. I think, what's the neighborhood that has that?
Parker Ridge.
Is it Parker Ridge? East of the elementary school, that has kind of an alleyway in between.
Parker Ridge.
Yeah.
East, at the southeast corner
Yeah,
of
Parker
Gathering
Ridge.
Division.
Yeah. Has their garages in the back, and it allows for a lot of, if you have 36 different styles of house, they're not going to look all that different, because you've got the majority of that first floor is all garage door. Granted, there's probably a ton of different colors and styles of garage doors, but when you look at it, that, like the townhouses that have the 6 units, all those garages are in the back, and your expectation is, like, you see the front of it, and it's like, oh, okay, I get what this is. But you start lining up those smaller single-family houses down, we're on a compressed lot size. It's going to look like the back of the townhouses with little gaps in between them. And I think there's a solution to it. But it'd be great to see what that might look like, because I know it takes up space, right? The other comment I had was just on lot size. I would like a family that buys one of these smaller houses not to outgrow it and have to move, but to outgrow it and do an addition. And I think when we push the lot sizes so tight between the edge of the house and the edge of the property line, it doesn't give people as much flexibility on that unexpected child or expected child. So it forces them to move. And while that may be good for MI to sell another house to them up in Silo Bend West, I would like to see the lot sizes stay kind of in line with what the R1 is at. And just to give them, and I don't even know if R1 is big enough. I'm thinking of my own lot. I don't know that I have the room to do an addition, but certainly with more land, you have the ability to maybe stay in your neighborhood that you love, and do an addition. And then that changes the character of the house a little bit and starts to turn it into more of a neighborhood that has a bunch of, more character than just what the builder might have delivered. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens in 20 years, but at least to consider that would be great.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Anybody else?
Well, I'll go down the line. I like the concept. I'm for it. I'm not going to get into architecture. I didn't think that was part of the conversation, to actually get into how they actually look. So I will talk about that more often. I'm a little concerned about, I know this is kind of the outskirts of where we are. I assume with Prime Boulevard and Cedar Ridge, we can create a water loop through that system. I assume next door is probably all well and septic, probably at the Colonial Estates. But we can create our own loop. I mean, we do not, this is not going to dead end there, correct? Okay. Other than that, I like what was presented. I know there's going to be plenty of engineering, plenty of studies, but the overall idea of that going in there, I'm for.
Okay, I guess I'm next. I'm gonna go a little left and then a little right. One of the things that we always look at is, we always try to get into this community is affordable housing. And MI Homes did try to do that. They tried to make the lots smaller, to make it a little bit affordable. They put in townhomes and had kind of like a stepping stone for that. And I really do appreciate that. But I was looking more of like a modular home, which I realize that that's not what MI Homes does. So that's not going to be in this area at all. So what I'd like to say is, if we go ahead and have this residential, I want to go ahead and go fully the opposite and say this should be R1 and it should be the bigger homes. I don't think we should have the mixed housing at all.
I agree with everything everybody said here. I know that we have requested in other subdivisions, especially Silo Bend West, that we do this small lot and smaller houses to try to bring the affordability price point down. I don't know if we can do that, and because I try to look at comparable homes, not there. There's a home on the south end of town. It's an 800 square foot house on 4,700 square feet. It's listed for $219. So if an 800 square foot house can be on an even smaller lot than what they have, that we have requested that they go ahead and develop on, we can't, we might have been able to get that price point down 6-7 years ago. I don't know if we'll be able to get it down now. I think we need to be realistic with that, and I think we had good intentions of trying to do that, and I think we can still do that with Silo Bend West. But I personally would like to go ahead and see a concept plan that has we get rid of the small lots. Give me traditional size, whatever 75 foot and whatever the normal depth is. Keep the townhomes, okay? Whether it's a six townhome, it might be a little bit too wide. Yes, I realize the break is only 4 or 5 feet in between the two buildings, but I would like to see a concept plan that, I just want to see a concept plan that everything other than where the townhomes are, traditional R1, traditional Cedar Ridge, traditional Silo Bend, traditional Karen Springs, traditional whatever. Okay, I just think our good intentions isn't going to be attained.
Lex, can you go back to the slide that showed the whole subdivision? Thank you. All right, anything else? No. Joanne, what do you think?
Well, I appreciated the, taking out some of those townhomes and so forth, and I understand, I received an email from one of the residents and stating that they are concerned for traffic going through the neighborhood. And I'd like, to talk about that a little bit more so that the residents can hear. The concern was density, and let's see, something else here. Concern. I'm sorry. Speed. Yes, the speed table. People driving through the neighborhood. I did talk briefly with our with Lance in reference to cars going through neighborhoods. In a sense, I think everybody can take advantage of the cars going through, and there's going to be more like three exits and entrances to the subdivisions, and they are going to be going through Cedar Ridge and Sadie subdivision and one other subdivision. So everybody's going to be able to take advantage of getting out one way or another. I think people are just concerned on the density. Too many cars coming in and out of the subdivision. I don't know how that can be, taken care of, because if you have this many homes and townhomes, you're going to have traffic coming in and out morning and evening. I don't know what the overall way to get around that. The dust, of course, anything with new construction, you're going to have inconveniences. But I think we just need to be more caring of the residents that are there now, and how we can lease invade in their tranquility of living in their subdivisions. I just, would like to just make sure that we take all the concerns that the residents have into consideration the best that we can. If we're going to go ahead with, the subdivision. So, with any development, I'm okay with the development. I just hope that, we could accommodate what the concerns are of the residents.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hopefully you've heard tonight that, we heard a lot of things at the Plan Commission meeting, and the developer made a significant number of changes. They reduced their total lot count by over 10% from where they were before. But traffic is always one of those concerns that comes up with any new development, and interconnectivity to other developments is something that, from a planning best practice standpoint, is really critical. And we have a classic example in town in two different locations that are the result of not doing that. Broken Arrow has no interconnections between any of our major roads. And so there's no way to get from Bruce Road to Division Street or from Farrell Road to Gauger Road without going to the intersections that are on the corners. And that creates congestion by itself. And so, if you remember the Redwood days where we talked about congestion on Farrell Road, one of the reasons why there is so much congestion on Farrell Road, or so many cars on Farrell Road, is because there's no other way for anybody that lives in Broken Arrow to get out. And so interconnectivity, and to the point of Saddle Bend West and your requirement for having them add that road that gets up to 159th Street is so prescient, because those interconnectivity between properties to get to major collectors and arterials is really crucial for our future traffic planning. I'm sure that if the Bruce Road interchange ever goes in, all the residents in Cedar Ridge will be able to access that interchange in less than 3 minutes, as opposed to going out onto Division, going west over to Gauger, going up to 159th Street, or south to Bruce Road, and then coming back. There will be a lot of traffic that will come through Sadie Ridge to get to that interchange. When the sports complex opens up next to Silver Cross, and Silver Cross obviously itself There will be a lot of traffic that will come through Sadie Ridge to get to Bruce Road, over to Gauger and south to Silver Cross, or east over to Cedar. Those are certainly traffic impacts that go in both directions. You know, one of the benefits of having some level of turns that are required for any subdivision, especially like Cedar Ridge, where you would have to make a right, a left, a right, just to get to Division Street, is that slows people down, and people are apt to go the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance from Sadie Ridge is to go out Bruce to Gauger and north, as opposed to go through a whole bunch of neighborhood streets. That's not to say that there won't be people that would use Cedar Ridge's streets to get places, but there is a lot of attractiveness to using Sadie Ridge's roads to get to either future or existing destinations that are south of this subdivision. But absolutely, I mean, understanding where stop signs are located, where crosswalks are going to be located, other traffic management controls are absolutely a part of our process during the traffic study. And when you look at final development plans, you will see those crosswalks, you will see where those stop signs are, you will see where all those connectivity components are. And as you approach Cedar Ridge, we totally agree with the residents that, you know, we want to make sure that it doesn't become a speedway and it doesn't become a drag strip as people go through that area. Speed tables are difficult for the city because our snow plows really have a difficult time navigating speed tables. They are certainly an obstacle that gets in the way of cars wanting to go fast, but it comes at the detriment of other components of the services that we provide. But knowing that there is interest and certainly concern on our end as well as the residents about, you know, how traffic flows into and out of Cedar Ridge is important to us too.
Renee?
So I just have one question starting out. So for the smaller homes, when we're talking about home affordability, what is the starting price of these smaller homes? Like, what are you guys proposing is going to be your opening price?
Hi,
Hi.
Greg Collins with MI Homes. They range in square footage from 1,800 up to 2,300 square feet. And the whole objective, as you can see with the overall site plan and where we've located the different types of housing types, we've got a band of square footage from, you know, the Lincoln Square townhomes of 1,400 to 1,500 square feet. As I just said, the smaller single-family homes from 18 to 23, and then I've got 23 to 3,300. So the idea was in bandwidth of price point, right, on all three housing types. So ultimately, our overall price point, like when I'm going to say I'm going to deliver a home and sell it, and what you're going to see as a sales price, you're going to see easily low 400s.
So that would be the smallest one.
Low 400s. And then, you know, you're going to have over a period of time.
He said low 400s for
Low
the
400s,
smaller
and
lots.
so,
Yeah. What do you guys then foresee for the full-size house lots?
well, for the full-size ones, I mean, we're transacting now in the mid-5s at Sidewell Bend. So, you know, you're going to see transactions from mid-5s to low 6s as well. So, last handful of closings at Sidewell Bend were low 6s.
If I go back to my 800 square foot house.
Don't take anybody with you.
Their sale price is $235 square foot. At 1,800 square feet at 235, it's $477. And that's a lot of money for a house on real. We understand, guys. So, like I said earlier, we may not be able to go ahead and approve something that is small lot size. If I'm spending $477,000 on a small lot size, I'm going to pool. And And we're not gonna allow, we're gonna request that, on those small lot sizes, that the HOA says no pools. Sure. Which is gonna go ahead and make a lot of people angry. They're gonna be spending close to $500,000. And, so, once again, I would much rather see a concept plan come through here with traditional sized lots. That's all.
And in Park Ridge, they do not allow any types of pools above ground. Because I remember someone tried to put one on the deck for a while, and it did not go over very well. They said it's not out in the yard, so, Park Ridge does not allow any pools, and it's probably about the same size lot.
Just to clarify what you're saying, Darren, standard size lots with varying size homes.
I'm talking about the smaller lots,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
smaller lots.
You're saying,
So,
So if they're saying 1,800, 2,300 square foot home on a small size lot,
so basically, you would change what's in orange on the screen to all yellow.
yellow.
Yeah, and I agree with that. If you're gonna pay that amount of money, you may as well have a big yard and a bigger yard.
What the difficult conversation is here is, right, is trying to legislate price point.
Right.
And affordability.
Right.
Right, affordability from one community, one zip code to the next is difficult to ascertain and get your arms around, correct? So, I mean, by doing that, and this is new construction, right? We charge a premium because people pay a premium for new construction. My 2x4 today is a lot different than what it would cost 20 years ago. It's just, it is what it is. So when you're trying to enter a marketplace, in this case, exist and coexist in a marketplace we've had experience in, to address new construction, and not only that, new construction on a single-family basis, right? How do you do that, right? My lumber costs aren't gonna go anywhere, my land cost isn't gonna go anywhere, my fees at the village aren't going down, right? You do that by design, the home size, the lot size, and get creative, right? So, you know, it's difficult to then say, well, 400,000 is not acceptable or isn't affordable for a single-family home. The alternative that we're talking about then is larger lot, and we'll be up to high fives and low sixes. So the discussion about affordability and more attainable is not really then the conversation, right?
Yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Renee, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, thank you.
well, I agree with what you just said, okay? But the point is, you know, we're at this phase in our development where, you know, we would be having a different conversation 10 years ago. Okay, 10 years ago when we needed to jumpstart things. But things are jump-started pretty good, so we can be a heck of a lot more picky. Okay, and we're gonna, you know, and I think that, put it this way, if this concept plan, if we have the vote on this concept plan, I don't know why I would vote yes. Okay, but you come back with a bunch more yellow in there, we'll have a different conversation, and I can vote yes. Okay? Because whether we approve this subdivision or not, we know that sometime in the future, there's gonna be homes there, sometime, because it's R1, so somebody's gonna bring an R1 to us, and it's, you know, and well, the annexation agreement is, what, 2009, okay? So, we can be a lot more picky, we can be a lot more stringent, and we don't have to say yes to this, so.
And I think you're right. And I think, so I'll give you guys my piece on this. So It is true, because the R1 and R2 have, they had a clause. The only thing we really have to consider, or rather the R2 and R3, the only thing we have to consider is R1. And it's a question of, if you guys wanted to come in here and do all R1, and you met our codes and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty much, something you'd be allowed to do. But we don't have to, as Darren's mentioned, we don't have to do the smaller lots, we don't have to do the townhomes. And so is there wisdom in not doing that? And that's really the question that we have up here for ourselves. And I get that, for a long time, we have tried to find ways to build affordable housing, right? Try to ask, creative ways to do it. Because it does break my heart that a young person can't start off and buy a $150,000 house. They have to start off with a $500,000 house, and how do they ever buy equity and these kind of things? And I get that's not what you guys do. It'd be like if you guys were a soft serve ice cream place, it'd be like me, say, can't you do some hard pack ice cream? And it's like, well, that's not our business model, right? And it's unfair to ask you that. And I get that. You guys are the ones looking to buy the land. Now, Christina, what I would say is we've talked about this many times, is how can we do some kind of small house project? Is there a way to do, small lot lines, 500 square foot house? I mean, I live in a neighborhood, you're right with me. There's homes that are tiny and they've been there for 3 generations and they're fine, and they have 0 lot lines and they're great, right? And they're community oriented, they have porches and everything. It's like, is that possible to build? Because that's not what these guys do. It doesn't mean it's not possible, it's just not what they do. And so what I would recommend is that, separately from this, if we're serious about that, we really need to be ready for it. In other words, I think as a council, we should talk about what that would look like, right? What kind of lot sizes? Are they modular homes that come in? And where in the city could that possibly go? And I think it's a great conversation, and I think we should have it, so the next time there's something that comes up, we can be prepared for it and not just, saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice? So that would be a recommendation I have, to try to reach the affordability thing. And you're right, I think the smaller lot lines, maybe they were an attempt, but I agree even with the way they're structured. I mean, they're just basically garages. I mean, I feel like I pull up to it and it's a garage, and there's no community at all. There's no front porch, there's no interaction with each other. I feel like people just drive into their garage, close the door, binge on Netflix all night, and then leave for work the next day. So it's not a good community.
You guys like that too, huh?
So, building, so if there were to be considered smaller lot sizes, it would really have to be a different product, if it were even to be acknowledged, or to be accepted in the plan. It is, and this is where I want to think long-term, is I agree 100%, Susie, that S-curve needs to be part of the traffic study. And I know it's outside of our city, right? I don't know if it's unincorporated, Homer Township.
It's Will County, Will County.
It's Will County. So while we might say, well, we don't have jurisdiction there, it needs to be part of this. In the same way when, Mayor Noak or Mayor Ray over there in Crestville and Romeyville, they'll put distribution facilities right on the other side of the bridge, and it's like they don't really care that they come over the bridge all day to get to 355. And it would have been more appreciated if we had worked together, so we're not just throwing traffic into another community. And so that, while it's outside of our community, that really does need to be addressed, because I can see people going east on Bruce Road, and the more people that are there when that curve comes around, it's problematic. So if this were to go forward with however we look at it, that definitely needs to be part of it. The only other thing I would want to look forward to is the day when the Bruce Road intersection happens, right? IDOT has set aside the right-of-way for it. It's actually in the plans. Does it happen in 10 years? Does it happen in 50 years? I don't know. But I do know if there's a bunch of big homes right there next to it, they're all gonna go bananas the day they find out that an interchange is coming there, and it won't be us, it'll be a future council, right? And so they'll be like, are you out of your mind putting this interchange here? And it won't matter that they're told, oh man, it's been in the plans for years and years and years. It won't matter. So I understand the townhome component there, maybe it fits better, but if what buffering does it? Let's say we did all R1 and then there's some are two smaller lots in the bottom corner. I don't know if that's the answer or not, but like thinking about how do you buffer that southwest corner for that future, intersection that comes in so that you don't, blow people out of the water when they find out it's coming. It could be, I don't know how much requirement is for a park on this. I know we have certain land sizes that require a park. I don't know if this falls into it. I don't see any parks on here, right?
It's in the middle.
Is there?
Yeah,
Middle.
the park is in the middle of the development. We typically, in the park district, likes to have their parks where they're most accessible to the most residents. So, similar to what you saw in Silo Bend, it's in the center of the community so that everybody has the shortest walk. We try not to put them on the edges of community and make people walk all the way across the entire development to get to it. But buffering and things like that, the one benefit that this site has, as opposed to maybe our northwest corner and northeast corner of 159th Street, is that there is the giant cell tower site that is in between 355 and this particular site. So there is a significant different distance between those components.
Okay. So I in the sense that that's my one, like if this went all R1 with normal lot sizes, I would be fine with it because we're not meeting the affordability, goal. So why beat our head against the wall, right? And if that's not the case, what's that buffering look like on the bottom, whether it's a different park or something? But I guess I would say this, if this weren't annexed in and had legacy zoning, I doubt that we would annex this property in and build homes here. We're just dealing with legacy projects and we have to react to them. And how do we make the best of them, seeing that this doesn't really fit that strong towns model, right, where we're building a subdivision way out at the edge of town, right? It's like that growth was not wise growth when it happened, 25 years ago, but we have to deal with it. And this is another one of those projects that's on the far outside of town. So it's doubtful we just, with our current mindset that we would annex this and build homes here, but with the legacy zoning, here we are, right? And we have to react to it. So at a minimum, if it were R1, so be it. But I think those other concerns about the buffering on the corner and the smaller lots, the product is not a good community product. So anyways, that's my piece.
And Lance, if this was developed, do you know how many acres we still have left of developable R1 or R2 remaining in?
Yeah,
our city?
legacy zoned residential.
What do we have out there still that could possibly, we're
Yeah.
talking about doing an affordable housing subdivision, where could that be or whatever? We're down to our last few areas, aren't we?
Yeah, I guess what I would offer to the council is there are going to be very few places where you would put a 78-acre affordable housing development, whether small lot or otherwise, to put what would then be, 400 or 500 units in a location. You wouldn't do that on 78 acres.
No, it's going to be part of something.
But
like
you
the,
could do
like
it
the
something.
Bruce Road, what
yeah.
is that? The Serenity now. What the heck's the name of that thing?
Serenity Landing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
That giant subdivision, all the roads are in. It's
Right.
down where Lou Wolf's church is. That's been empty for a long time. You're right, it wouldn't be a giant, small, but it could be a small component of it.
A component of it.
Which actually might work well in that Fairmont School District, because it always scares folks, but that's the kind of house that's not a family house for children. So it could actually be a very good component. And I get this is a separate conversation, but doing planning.
See, from our standpoint here is we do have time points. And if this is a 2009 annexation, and annexation agreements are only 20 years. In 2029, we can just de-annex this.
Is that actually a fact? Because that was a point of contention that came up in.
So this will stay R1. It reverts to R1. You don't automatically de-annex. you would have to petition. Municipalities, you can, that's one of those components that requires more, more
And I'm guessing the
process.
property owner would have to
Yeah,
agree?
they would have to agree.
It's like you can't just disown your child, they have to
Yeah.
agree.
So typically, the property owners petition the court to de-annex from, the municipality and then go unincorporated. It's rarely done where the municipality de-annexes a parcel.
So we're stuck with R1.
We are with, currently, yes. Unless someone comes up with senior, age-restricted living, then it's
Then
the R.
R2 and
Yep,
R3 kick
yep.
in, sure, correct. Okay. All right, thank you.
I want to thank you guys for being flexible, for making the modifications when you came, based on the feedback that you got at the last meeting.
Yeah.
I know that these aren't free, and I know that you were directed, or it's a big interest of the council still to have affordable housing product available. So I do appreciate you guys making that effort, and I know that there's more work ahead of you. So my apologies for that, but I do appreciate you guys. And everybody I know that has a house that you guys have built has been happy with it, based on what I've heard. So speaking to your the quality
Anything
of the
else
product.
from council then? Because then I'll go to the public speaker comment cards.
Good.
Okay. All right, friends, and I know these meetings are long, but that's just what it is, right? When we do stuff like this, so I appreciate your patience. All right, so Megan, you come on up. And if you would, I'd appreciate if you guys, when you come up to speak, if you could just tell us where you live, just go over to the podium.
Hi, my name is Megan Hegemaster. I actually live in Homer Glen, but I own a business like literally across the street. So I love Lockport, and I appreciate all of you and all of the hard work you do, and I really appreciate you listening to us and our concerns, and we really appreciate you. So I live on McCarran Road, and my property would be 75 feet from where the subdivision would be built. My backyard faces the most beautiful sunsets, the most incredible firework displays that we get to see on the 4th of July and 3rd of July, and we designed our backyard to capitalize on that. We have incredible wildlife because of that open field. We have owls, we have hawks, we have incredible birds, we're so blessed, really. We're so lucky to live where we live. My concern personally is that we will no longer have those things that make this such a special place. I have a 8-year-old, she loves animals, she loves nature, and it's largely because of how special it is, how special this place is that she grows up in. So I would hate to see that not take it into consideration when homes are eventually built there. And I think we can all agree that we would prefer homes over warehouses. We just want them to be appropriate for that space and for our needs. The other problem and concern I have is we are all on well and septic. I don't know how a subdivision of this size and this capacity is going to affect our well and septic. We already have problems with our water from time to time as is, and I would certainly hate to see that continue or get worse. I think everything else that I have concerns over has been addressed wonderfully by the members of this board, and I won't take up too much or any more time other than to say thank you.
All right, thank you, Megan, appreciate it. And George, please.
Thank you. I also live on McCarran Road. I really appreciate the mayor pointing out that this is legacy zoning and it was originally intended for senior living. Senior living is a lot different than putting up single families, young families in this area, and it creates a much larger traffic burden on the greater area. I don't know how many of you are on Bruce Road on a regular basis, but once you pass that stop sign at Farrell Road, you have no lines on that road anymore. It is a pure county road, township road that I don't know how this many cars could be on it traveling towards State Street and it'd be safe. There are so many accidents already at the corner of Bruce and Briggs Road. I see them definitely on a monthly basis, if not on a weekly basis, that this would just further exacerbate this issue. I do want to point out that the entrance to this going onto Bruce Road is coming up over a bridge now, much like the Sadie Ridge complex did, and the Village of Lockport had to put a policeman there for a good part of 2 or 3 years to stop accidents at the entrance to the Sadie Ridge subdivision because of the traffic patterns that, you know, are created on these rural country roads. I really think that.
George, were you talking about Sagebrook?
Sagebrook, I'm sorry, yes, I apologize, Sagebrook. And the traffic patterns, the disruptions that caused in this, that really was a detriment to the community and caused huge congestion in this area. I do know that they want to hook into the Cedar Ridge subdivision, and that would basically cause people going through a neighborhood that, you know, had 4 or 5 cars on it total to, you know, possibly as many as 1,200 cars on it a day. That's really a dramatic increase, and I really don't think this is a good idea if you go to this high-density housing that you want. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to say this right. Marcin?
Times 4, so 1,000 if you had 4.
Forgive me if I mispronounced that.
Hi, I also live on McCarran Road, and you guys, thank you for addressing the majority of our concerns. I can speak for myself and majority of my neighbors and the ones that are not here, that we do not accept this concept of the site that what they're trying to do. We would not, I would not be opposed to R1 housing if it was built there, especially something that would represent like the colonial style that we have in our community. So things like this, I don't know if I had there's high radon content in the soil from when I did a test in my house. My property was measured at over 14 PCI, and the acceptable EPA safe measurement is at 4 PCI, making it 3 times larger margin to possibly develop lung cancer due to the radon. Starting a development and disrupting the soil combined with the high water content will only increase radon in the area. That's one of my concerns is, you know, increasing the radon content in our area, especially in the new homes that they're going to build, and if they're going to disclose that to the new residents. I'm not going to beat the traffic anymore. I think we got that down. We're concerned. I have kids, and I am concerned about the traffic. Also, if they open up Ron Court, we also don't have any stop signs in our intersection, or street lights, or sidewalks for our children to safely get to and from anywhere. So those are, or lighting. We don't have any street lights.
You guys are officially Homer Glen, right? Or is it unincorporated?
Yes, we are Homer Glen. Are we unincorporated? We are unincorporated. I was talking to another neighbor, so they weren't sure. We are incorporated, okay.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so, those are some of my concerns. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Marcy. All right, John Hilton.
First and foremost, thank you. My name is John Hilton. If you could put that slide up where it showed Colonial Acres, I'd like to show you my lot. Yeah. Yeah, that one right. I am at lot 23. I can concur with everything that's been said about the drainage, the water issues, and so on and so forth. I appreciate all of the, I guess, all the reviews that have been done, all the hard work that has gone into this concept at this time. I'm just hoping that none of these issues that are talked about tonight, specifically, in my mind, the density, the traffic issues, and the safety issues are going to be ignored going forward. My biggest concern is the cooperation between and among Lockport, Homer Glen, Homer Township. It is not a secret that there are problems within Homer Glen and Homer Township in terms of getting along and communicating and doing things for, I think, the constituents of those areas. I would hope that Lockport can be the big kid on the block and maybe take a lead on this and keep the involvement of Homer Glen, Homer Township, the schools, Homer 33C, and also the high school. Now, to give you some sort of historical perspective, when I purchased this house in 1989, my taxes were $3,300 a year. They are now $11,400. When I purchased the house, it cost me $219,000. The most recent survey that we've had, comps are probably in the neighborhood of $475 to $550 for this house. It's about 2,900 square feet. So to give you an idea of what's gone on in the real estate business, I have to concur with your developers here. The prices are just astronomical. They are not affordable. I don't know where people are getting the money nowadays to be able to buy anything. It's not only houses, it's cars, it's everything. I don't know where it's going to stop. But in terms of what's going on in our area, I'm hoping that by the cooperation of all these entities, the schools, Lockport, Homer Glen, Homer Township, and by continuing the communication between and among and having the ability for us to be here, we will get a product that everybody will be happy with. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And then Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Winter. I live in Cedar Ridge. I had just a couple of points. One was, this would be the fourth subdivision that MI Homes is building or planning in Lockport, is that right? Third, oh, okay.
There's a proposed other one, but yes.
Okay. Will there be diversity in what the houses look like between each of the subdivisions?
That's probably a question for MI. You probably look, if you were to do all R1, let's just say that's the trend we're going, would it look very much like Sagebrook or Silo Bend? Yeah, if you don't mind.
That was one. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
you know what, why don't we just take your concerns?
That's
And
one.
that's a better way of doing it.
Because I
We
don't-
hear you, and I'm writing all these things down, so, okay.
So that's one. I would hope that there's diversity in what the houses look like so that not every neighborhood looks the same. Number two is, can you put the picture up of, that shows Cedar Ridge and then the new subdivision? One more. Yes. So Cedar Ridge is right above the yellow, and each of those is a single lot. So we're gonna have a single street of homes that have lot sizes like ours, and then right away it goes to small homes in the green. I don't think that's enough. If we're gonna have that lot size, I don't think they should be that close to Cedar Ridge at all. And then the last was about the traffic through Cedar Ridge. What I thought I saw is that it's supposed to go through Sprucewood and then they can go right directly to Cedar Ridge Drive to get to 159th Street. Or Pinewood, okay. I live on Cedar Ridge, on a corner, and I can tell you that, and I live across from the park. We have several bus stops on that street. I have 4 college-age kids. When they are all home, we are constantly telling them, look sideways, look behind you, make sure there's no little children because there's so many kids running around, a lot of young kids running around. And so they've gotten so used to it, it's like you can't pull out of the driveway without looking a million times. I can't imagine more traffic going through the subdivision because there are bus stops where there aren't adults able to be there, and it's a group of kids together. Or the adult is down the street with the baby and then just watching out of their house at a bus stop. So I don't understand why these subdivisions have to be joined at all. That's my opinion. Thank you.
And then lastly, Stephen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve. I represent the Board of Towns of Cedar Ridge. You guys have already made a bunch of great points here already with the, preferably sticking with R1, R2. We are not opposed to progress. It's part of the area. It's part of what happens. As Lance knows, when it came to our neighbors moving in with B&B, Cedar Ridge has been very, let's just say, open to work with everyone, even when we've had issues that, made for emergency phone calls saying, we got a problem. But there's a lot of resident concern about the traffic, which has been brought up. We understand the ability for traffic tables is difficult in that area. If this were to happen as R1, even as R1 and R2, we're not opposed to this, but we'd still like to see what our options would be when it comes to some sort of traffic procedures in place throughout, maybe even a stop sign. There is, as they've been saying, quite a bit of traffic. As the police officer might know, we even had a situation where somebody crashed into our landscapers last year into the back of their trailer on Pinewood Road. They fly through there already at a pretty good clip, especially the kids on the dirt bikes, which, that's going to be everywhere. But we're kind of starting to connect more and more areas. And while we're not opposed to the connection coming through, because that would benefit Cedar Ridge, it'd benefit the houses, it'd benefit them, it would be a situation for us if we had double the density in the area now coming to the subdivision and now connecting through to us. The S-curve has been brought up by a couple people. That's a really big deal because a lot of people go out of their way to avoid the S-curve, which is why Gauger and Farrell and everything gets so bad, because instead of just jumping out and going down Cedar, people avoid that like the plague, especially when it comes towards our icy months. I recently put a dash cam in my significant other's car because she's watched numerous people go right off the curve coming by to avoid someone that last minute pulls out due to the fact that there is such a poor traffic management. And I understand that's not Lockport, it's outside of your responsibilities, but it's going to be something that impacts everybody in that area from Colonial Manor to, all the way up to Victoria Crossing as it starts to become Cedar becoming a higher traffic street. We are here to work with anybody however we can, but we definitely want to voice the fact that, the lower density would mean a lot to us. I look out that way and I can see over the proposed subdivision from where I'm at. I'm in the back corner. And I wouldn't mind to look out there and see houses one bit. Literally 5 days a week right now, I wake up to the duck hunters or goose hunters that are back there blasting away. And hey, I'm all for sport too, but at the same time, I don't have problems with a lot of things if everybody can kind of work together. And if we can kind of come together on this, or the board can kind of come together on this and determine that, hey, this is something we want to do, I truly hope you guys do consider little bit less density. Whether it comes to the amount of R2 or townhomes versus houses, that's for you guys to determine. I'm not a planner. That's not what I do. But I do know from a lot of people that have been reaching out to me in the past few weeks, whether it's via Facebook or sending me emails, walking by and seeing me with the grill outside and coming to bother me for a few minutes, that, they just want to kind of have their feelings heard. And again, we appreciate everything you guys have done. What's been going on in Lockport in general is great. Progress is great. But I think we've kind of watched how much we're biting off in this one when we've already got quite a bit of other stuff going on in the area, and we're kind of next to one of what most people think of as some of the nicer townhouses in the area due to the fact that we have that extra bit of green space around everyone. And that's what makes us desirable, you know, so you might end up having a project that sells out even quicker if you're putting something out there, even at a higher price, that people are a little bit more comfortable in because they have a little bit more green space, a little bit more park space, access to the bike paths without people whizzing by going 45 miles an hour in a 20 with school kids. Cedar Ridge, the townhouses, we have very few for younger kids, but the houses have many. I see them every day myself. And there are a lot of people that just, they California stop the signs we already do have. So sure, it slows them down, but once we connect a path from Bruce all the way to Division, we're all a little nervous about that. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Stephen. All right, friends, thank you for taking the time to sit through these things. I know they take time, but I'm glad that you were able to come out and share your thoughts. And we're not here just to take these cards just to humor you. I mean, we do take all these things seriously. So a whole list of your thoughts, which we'll couple up with our thoughts. And next piece is talking a little bit with the current developer and about what happened tonight and what we discussed, and we'll go from there. Next piece of this would come, in a few weeks, and we see what, how we apply these conversations. So,
Sure.
yes.
No, I just wanted to just kind of wrap up the evening. One, thank you. I mean, to be honest, this is exactly why we do these things. I attend nightly meetings on a regular basis. This is what I do for a living, and this process is ideal for certainty on investment, on capabilities, working with staff, and understanding what direction to go in. So this is actually very helpful. We have no problem going back, retooling, understanding what can and can't work here. Just to address some of the high-level questions, I've already earmarked and talked to my traffic consultant. Yes, the intersections of both to the east at Cedar as well as to the west at Gallagher are a part of a traffic study scope that will be included. As with respect to design of the single-family homes, we've already, and we consistently do this on a regular basis with our design, is freshen up elevations, bring in new color palettes, bring in new looks. So we've already done that with what we call our classic series. So yes, we will be introducing new elevations. And then when we come back, looking at what R1 is, maybe an opportunity for transitional zoning in the southwest corner, as was discussed earlier, with the townhome use. That might be a little bit, again, from a price point standpoint, because the challenge becomes now a little bit more economics, larger lots, way less dense, same development costs, right? Same turn lane costs. So those are things that we have to weigh against, an R1 zoning, which is, a little bit more inefficient. So we'll weigh those things, talk to staff, and we heard what you said, and we'll take that direction.
I'm curious, at the zoning and planning meeting, was a lot of these issues brought up at that meeting?
Yeah, and we
Okay,
and we had
so really what has been said tonight about the density and, and the traffic flow and things like that, that's something you already knew, correct?
Yeah, I would say that probably is what precipitated the change. I mean, it had a tepid response.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, when something goes through planning and zoning, it's usually unanimous, but it was a tepid response, and so I think that started the rethinking.
It seems like that's still not enough, it looks like, after hearing the residents' concern and so forth.
That's why we have a 6-meeting process, Joanne.
Yeah. I mean, but were there any concerns, Dave, that the panel had on, did the panel, the planning and zoning, did they
There
have
was
any-
concerns by different commissioners of lot sizes, density,
Okay.
price point. The vote was 3-2, 3 yes and 2 no's.
Okay.
There was some miscommunication on the annexation agreement. And, it's not much more I can say. Everything that's
I know.
was said there was said here. The lot sizes, originally we thought the lot sizes being smaller were for a lower price point house. That's not true. And that's why Saddle Bend West was that way. the price point was stated at 320 in, I think, June this year of July. But now it's at 400.
Yeah.
That's why I think we have the big problem with, we'll give you the big lot, the small lot sizes for a smaller price point, but now the price point's changed. So why are we going to the small lots? I don't care for the small lots, that's my personal opinion. That's why we have 7 members of the commission.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, your concerns at planning and zoning were absolutely noted, Dave, thank you. All right, friends, anything else? Then looking for a motion to adjourn?
So,
Oh,
No,
yeah, well, it's up for action, but let's see what, I'm not, we have 2 weeks to see what they come back with, but at the moment, it would be an action item. And then we'll decide if it's something that needs to be further discussed by the next meeting, right? If we're not satisfied with what comes back, we can always delay it for a further meeting in the future, but.
So
I'm just concerned with those of us that live in Homer Township, Homer Glen, whatever, that live there. How are we gonna get notification on the next steps? Because some of us didn't get any notification about what's gonna happen to.
Our website has agendas posted Friday before the meetings, so that's when we get the information. It also gets posted publicly.
When is the next meeting?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. We do our meetings the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of every month.
The agenda's there, the packet's there, you can go into the agenda, it's all hyperlinked into all the parts of it, so you just click on the item that you're interested in, it goes right to it. Same thing for like this meeting will be presented there.
Yeah, but we live in
and we're-
Homer.
Like you
So
go on the
You have the
website.
internet. You have the internet, it's the same for both, we all have the web, and
The
that's,
core stuff is on our agenda?
no.
No.
The City of Lockport's
The
website.
Lockport website, you are capable of going to.
Right, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, we would have never known, some of us, I wouldn't have known if my neighbor didn't message, like, call me.
So the way that,
Like-
yeah, so the way that we handle concept plans, just like the legal requirements for a public hearing, is we require that the applicant notice within 250 feet of all property lines.
Okay.
And so everybody that lived within 250 feet of one of their property lines got a letter. And
I mean, I
clearly-
don't live within 250 feet, but
Right.
Bruce Road directly affects my house, so if
The-
we have to know, you know, like, we have.
I mean,
to
we do our best within the 250 feet, and,
Blame the pipeline.
yeah, but do pay attention to the agenda. It's not that hard to go on
I will,
there.
but I would like, you know, my neighbors to be involved.
Yeah, that's
Facebook.
really what the big thing is, just share it with folks and encourage them to come out, so. All right, very good. So action, and then, we're done, yeah? Anything else? All right, so we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Renee and Jonathan, all in favor? Oh, I'm so sorry. Look at that deep voice, Susan.